All right, two decisions, original sin or sin as choice. If you'll notice, I said there's a difference between evil and guilt. What precisely is that difference between evil and guilt? An illustration that I use over and over because it is the clearest illustration I've ever come across. Some of you have a perfect example of this difference in your own homes in a little animal that you call a pet. But when you examine this little animal carefully, you really begin to wonder why in the world you ever chose that animal as a pet in your home, because it has a problem. It's called a split personality. There's one side of your little pet that is warm and loving and affectionate. It'll rub up against your legs. It'll go to sleep on your lap. It is just the warmest, most loving little cat you ever could want. But you just open the door to the great out of doors and you watch the change in personality that comes over that sweet little pet of yours. The tail is at full attention, the whiskers at full alert. Why? Is it going out into your backyard to admire the sunset, perhaps? To smell the roses, maybe? Oh, my. You see, in your house, there are just too many rules. There are rules about where to eat, where not to eat, where to jump, where not to jump, and your cat's head gets all cluttered up. It doesn't know which rules it even wants to obey. But outdoors, there are only two rules that matter. Rule number one, very important. You run from anything that's bigger than you. It's called survival. Have you noticed that your cat's head is on a swivel out there in your backyard? It is checking out all directions at once. The ears go this way, the eyes go that way, because it's going to make sure it isn't going to get trapped by something it can't handle. So it's on the alert all the time. That's rule number one. But rule number two is the fun rule. You catch anything that's smaller than you. And your cat is sizing up animals to decide if you run from it or if you catch it. That's its job, to make those decisions all the time. And so your cat finds that animal that is not quite so strong, quite so fast as your cat. And it catches that little mouse, that little gopher, whatever it is, out in your backyard. And it quickly, humanely, and mercifully puts it out of its misery, correct? As you've noticed, that's not the way it happens. Because you see, your cat is not out there because its hunger pangs are destroying it, so it has to get something to eat. You've taken care of that in your house. Its belly is full. Your cat is out there to catch and kill another animal because that's fun. Strange thing happens if you watch it carefully. Your cat with its sharp claws and sharp teeth has caught that little mouse, and somehow your cat gets distracted a little bit and the mouse is gone. Do you think that just happened by accident? Your cat is out there for the fun of the chase. And catching is only one phase of it because you want to do it all over again. You don't see mice all that often, so when you get one, you want to get the most out of it you can. And so somehow that little mouse escapes those sharp teeth and claws. And your cat gets to catch it all over again. And then it escapes again, which means you get a third chance to catch it all over again. Your cat is out there for the fun of the game. Now, do mice have vertebrae and nerves? They're mammals, aren't they? And all mammals have nerve endings. So do mice feel pain? Sure they do. That little mouse is under real duress at this time because its life is coming to an end. And it's not coming to an end quickly like in a mouse trap, is it? It's coming to an end slowly, painfully, bit by bit. It can't move as fast. It can't run as fast. It's suffering and dying. Does your cat care? Does your cat have any compassion at all? It's out there to have its fun at the expense of anyone else. Who cares what the other person is feeling? All I care about is how much fun I'm having. You see, your cat has a fallen nature too. Adam didn't just give fallen natures to human beings. He gave it to the whole animal world. We call it instinct. It's a fallen nature. Cats aren't going to act like that in God's new earth, but they do now. And your cat is only interested in its selfish pleasure. It's going to have fun. Who cares about anyone else? Who cares who suffers? You watch it all from your backyard. And then, perhaps on another day, your little sweet loving cat comes marching up to your back door, feathers sticking out of all sides of its mouth, waiting to be praised for the good job it has done in your backyard. Got rid of one more of those nasty little songbirds that clutter up the neighborhood. What do you do now? You've enjoyed the singing of that little bird. It's not going to sing anymore. Do you hold a little trial right on your back porch? Do you get a jury together to decide guilt or innocence? Do you have a jail cell prepared in case the verdict is guilty? Of course, you don't do any of those things. What you do is you scold your cat a little bit, you brush the feathers away, and you actually welcome that little killer back into your house as if nothing had happened. You know what you've just done on your back porch? You have made a distinction between evil and guilt. That's what you've done. You realize that what happened in your backyard was evil, not part of God's plan, part of the result of Adam's sin. But you ascribed no guilt to your cat. Why? Because you decided that in that little brain, there is apparently no room for something we call conscience, which is an understanding of right and wrong because it is right and wrong, not because of selfish pleasure or pain. And your cat doesn't have that ability. All it knows is how it can survive in this world. And its instinct tells us, I should go out and kill something. And you recognize that evil happened in your backyard, but you attach no guilt to it. That's what I mean by a distinction between evil and guilt. Very important in this understanding of sin. And most Christians do not understand this.
Okay. So, zero biblical exposition, just analogies. I mean, seriously? Using a pet cat as an analogy for why original sin doesn't carry guilt? I guess I missed Paul's feline theology in Romans 5. No, Mr. Priebe, a cat is not a human being. A cat is not in the progeny of Adam. Not only was there zero biblical exposition, but he committed so many category errors, which is a fallacy. Category error is a type of fallacy. By equating the behavior of a cat to a human being, which is a distinct part of creation, apart from the rest of the created order. This is why the Adventist teaching around the nature of man touches on so many different areas. They don't actually understand what it truly means to be made in the image of God. It shows so many errors come from that part of their worldview that they're so entrenched in. And they think the truth is from Satan. That's spiritualism. Like, I get it that in Adventism, humans are really no different than an animal. You only possess breath and a body like an animal. So it makes sense why someone with a great controversy worldview would make this claim. But like, wow, what a mess. He said, Adam didn't just give a fallen nature to humans, he also gave it to animals. Wow. Wow. Romans 8 does indeed talk of all of creation being bound by the curse that God placed on it. Something else the great controversy worldview butchers, by the way. It's like they often talk about it as like Satan is no, God is the one that placed a curse on the creation. He's going to lift that off one day. But it does indeed say that the creation was bound against its own will. It was man that plunged it. But it doesn't say anything about animals receiving a fallen nature from Adam. A fallen nature, like we saw in Romans 5, has to do with being in the line of the first Adam, being down chain in his progeny. Horses, whales, termites, those are not sons and daughters of Adam, sir. The fallen nature is distinct to God's image bearers, not literally all living things by virtue of being living. He said, cats are only focused on their own selfish pleasure and that instinct is actually selfishness. No. Survival skills do not equate to having a fallen nature or committing evil. Cats don't have a moral code written on their conscience like God's image bearers. Cats are not selfish because selfishness is something that pertains to morality. And he seemingly admitted this, but errantly equated that to distinguishing between evil and guilt because the cat doesn't know any better. Well, right, because the cat doesn't have any sort of moral code from natural law written upon its conscience, which again, he recognized. They don't have a conscience, but he used this, and you're going to see why, to distinguish between guilt and evil. But I'd really be curious to hear someone like Dennis Priebe actually exegete the biblical text, not cite a proof text and make assertions, not do the Gatling gun approach like Randy Skeet and Doug Batchelor do, where they cite so many proof texts from memory and sound super biblical, but don't actually do any actual exposition by walking through the text, which that works on some people, but some of us can see right through that. There were so many errors there, it would take us the rest of the evening to even address all of them.